Welcome to PharmaSource, recorded at CDMO Live 2025. This episode is brought to you by Qualifies, the platform that helps life science teams streamline audits and predict site risks with AI-driven insights.
We're going to have a conversation now about how to navigate the European manufacturing landscape from a small molecule perspective. Europe stands at a critical juncture in pharma manufacturing. There's obviously a very rich heritage of innovation and quality excellence with setting the global standards in many areas in terms of sustainability and in quality, but it's not without its challenges. Operating across 27 member states creates some really unique complexities not seen in other markets, such as, for example, the United States or China or other large markets like that. So an important conversation, I think, to talk about how the European manufacturing landscape will develop and some of the upcoming regulatory changes, sustainability demands and geopolitical demands which we read so much about. To guide us through these issues, I'm pleased to introduce you to our expert panel. Elena Barboni, Director of Business Development at Flamma for Europe, US and China. Elisabeth Stampa, Vice President of Medicines for Europe, previously CEO and now Chair of Medichem, with extensive experience in policy frameworks supporting European manufacturing landscape, particularly in generics and biosimilars. And we're also joined by Agneta Larhed, Senior Consultant at RegSmart Life Science, who has regulatory experience on navigating the European landscape with a particular emphasis on regulatory around early stage development. Welcome to all of you today.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's start then. We want to talk about on the regulatory side, where we're seeing significant changes in the EU supply chain, which will affect small molecule manufacturing. So I think, Elisabeth, seeing as we've got you here, I wonder if you could outline what those changes are, some of the most important directives which are coming down the line, please.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me here. I would like to go on the regulatory landscape a bit from the more negative side to the more positive, or at least that's my view. So I would say on the more negative, we would have the Urban Wastewater Directive, which is already out there, and which basically aims to have the pharma industry and the cosmetic industry paying for the quaternary water treatment in different phases, but that's the end goal. This is very burdensome, especially for the pharmaceutical industry, for the generic sector, because on many products we work on a razor-thin margin. So if an additional tax comes on top of that, the potential withdrawal of the medicine may happen, which may affect public health. So if you think in my country, for example, the treatment for 1 month of diabetes or hypertension costs €1.5, less than a cup of coffee. If the costs have been increasing, the price has been steady because you are not authorized to increase price. So cost increase, margin decreases if you work for 25% profit and you get 50 cents of additional tax. Possibly that product is going to be withdrawn from the market. So the Urban Wastewater Directive is out there with different timings for implementation, and out of Medicines for Europe, we are really trying to delay this directive because it will become extremely burdensome, but the impact will be very, very bad for the European patients.
And when is that supposed to come into force?
2028. Mm-hmm. But the thing here, it's not we are against the environmental measure, because I think we are all in favor of clean waters. It's more that only the pharma and the cosmetic industry has to pay for it, while other industries are not considered responsible on one hand. Secondly, who is responsible for the quaternary water treatment? The authorities, the water companies, or do we need to pass this on to other industries? So the urban wastewater would be on the most negative extreme. We do have a threat on the PFAS, on the perfluoropolyfluoroalkylated substances. So everyone knows what a cooking pan is, or ski walks, Teflon layered outgear wearables. But it's also widely used in the pharma industry, mainly for gliding purposes, and it's extensively used according to a study done between FPIA, the Innovative Industry and Medicines for Europe. Between 1,500 and 2,000 medicines would be directly affected, and there is no alternative. Secondly, most of the equipment used to manufacture pharmaceuticals, both active ingredients and finished dosage forms, are with tools or tooling parts of the equipment which have this anti-glidant layer. So it would have a tremendous impact in the industry. Still, this is not active and this is still under discussion, so we are more positive there that there will be some exemptions for the industries, at least the ones directly related to public health. I would say in the middle, between positive and negative, we would have the Annex 1 for the manufacturing of injectable fill and finish. This was like a big shock, especially because the implementation time was 1 year, which was really tough. On the positive side, the aim of this Annex 1 is to prevent the contact between the operators and the final sterile product. And this, we believe, is positive once you have had time to implement, especially to adapt to the new requirements. On the more positive side, I would say we have the review of the pharma legislation. And why is this important? Because it's the first review of pharmaceutical legislation in the past 20 years. It was issued officially 2 years ago, and it's still under the not so agile European legislative process. So it's at the Council now. What is positive there is the BOLAR provision, which is the provision which allows generic manufacturers to develop and prepare for the launch of the generic product. And once this is out, the common understanding among the different countries should be exactly the same, so there are not different interpretation of the dates among the different countries. There is also a provision there for value-added medicines, for repurposed medicines. There is also a common understanding, even if that's the main point of disagreement with the innovative industry, obviously on the incentive of the protection times. The current proposal is now to cover for 11 years of protection, which, if you compare to the 5 years you have in the US, is quite a long period. And obviously, the generic industry, we are much more in favor of shorter protection times, but each one is here defending its own industry, which is fair. And I would say another relevant topic here, although it needs only to be implemented, or the deadline is in 10 years' time, is the electronic patient leaflet, which you may think is just a small detail. But first of all, it's environmental friendly. Secondly, it allows to adapt the content of the patient leaflet in case there are variation, expansion of indications, or whatever, expansion of the shelf life, whatever. But secondly, and I think most importantly, it will be very helpful for some smaller jurisdictions like the Maltas and the Cyprus and the Northern Ireland of this world, who have to import most of their medicines. And the patients there would be able to receive the patient leaflet printed in their own language and in a font which you can possibly read, which now is difficult. This is on the pharmaceutical legislation, and I would say the last piece is the Critical Medicines Act, which aims to reshore the production of the essential medicines, APIs, and finished dosage forms in Europe. And I think we are going to cover this a bit later, so I spare the details for then.
Thank you for that comprehensive introduction, Elisabeth. Elena, from the CDMO point of view, Flamma helps global operations in Europe, United States, and in China. What does this regulatory environment mean for you and also for your customers as well? How does it influence the decision-making about where work's going to happen?
But I think now we speak more for Europe about this point, about sustainability, about protect the environmental like this. But this is something that we can find everywhere, not only in Europe, also in China, also in US. For us, but I think for all the companies that produce small molecules, we involved a lot because it's very, we have to invest in new technology in our facility to reduce emission, to protect the environment. And this, okay, we spend a lot of money. But from other side, first of all, we produce medicine for the patient, for the people, for us, because also us, we are patient. And so, okay, we spend money, but it's something that is very important for everybody. So I think we have to see like a challenge, like an opportunity for us. For Flamma, it's like this. So, it's an opportunity. We invest a lot in Europe, also in China, to reduce emission, to recovery, for example, solvents. Because it's something that can help and can give us the differentiation with other companies that they cannot do it. Or not they cannot, they don't want. This is different. So it's very important, this point. Flamma is also part of EFSG, and this discussion is always made. So all the CDMO think that it is very important to speak about this, to invest in this, because it's a plus. So not a minus, but it's a plus. And we have to be ready to this, because again, protect the environmental is not only for business. That is important, but it's also for us, because all of us are patient. And we think that we have to introduce more strictly regulation also for the drugs that come from outside Europe, because in this way we are at in the same level.
Thank you. Agneta, how are early stage companies factoring these types of regulatory factors into development, and how should they think about it from that early development stage so that they're ready when they get to commercial?
So my experience is that they are not very well aware of these issues during early development. They are more into getting their product, starting to manufacture it, to do studies. So they don't discuss that very much. So I think the CDMOs need to have a discussion with them about this so that they can be more informed about what to do, that you need to do this to be correct later on.
So there's an education gap there?
Yes, I believe so. And I don't think it's a big gap. Of course, they will understand it, but that's not their first aim in early development. Then it's to develop their product, to get you a proof of concept, etc.
Great. Thank you. Let's move to sustainability then. So that's an area where arguably, in fact, probably not arguably, Europe is clearly setting the standards for the rest of the world in sustainability. Elisabeth, the EU's emphasis on the circular economy creates both opportunities and challenges, and I think there's an interesting tension between sustainability goals and patient needs, particularly when it comes to packaging materials and single-use items like pre-filled syringes. How do you think regulators need to address this balance?
Well, that's a difficult question, obviously. On the production of APIs, there are several issues you can do to counterbalance and I will also think that every time you get a restriction, the industry gets more creative on how to overcome that restriction. So we can talk about flow chemistry, enzymatic chemistry. You can talk about circular economy. I think we did at Medicam is we were first selling, but then only providing the waste of specific products to the fertilizing industry, so there was really a real circular economy there. You recoup all the containers, so there are things you can do there. Also, when you get restrictions, you consume, or you try to find how the ways to consume less water, to reduce the consumption of solvents, and the production of waste, because you then have to get rid of waste, so you try to minimize the waste. And if you talk to the API industry, most of them, we have worked towards reducing all those consumptions of energy, water, solvents, and the creation of waste, because it's then a problem and a cost. There you also have, and I think that covers also the finished dosage form part of the contract manufacturing, all the AI intelligence, all the artificial intelligence solutions, and a basic one in this industry, which did not start with ChatGPT, but started like 10 years ago, is the definition of the golden batch. And this you can apply for the API, but also for the finished dosage form, like having the perfect condition to produce the product in the most efficient way, controlling all the circumstances around that manufacturing. For that, you need to have substantial data and quality data, we agree, but this is not something new. And this is, according to most analysts, and I'm definitely not a specialist in AI, this is one of the basic and most forward-looking solutions applicable, you can apply from AI. There are some hurdles, and you were mentioning them. One is the increased use of pre-fill syringes, which are manufactured of materials which are not that easily recyclable. There is also the PVC, and the aluminum you use just for blistering. And I think there we have to find the balance between trying to consume as less as possible of materials which cannot be recycled, but on the other hand, those are the materials which keep your product stable a long time, and which allow you to extend the shelf life of the product. Otherwise, you would have to just get rid of your product 3 years. In 3 years, maybe, if you are able to have a shelf life of 5 years, you are able to extend that. So I think it's a matter of finding the balance while we do not identify the materials which could substitute the ones which are not recyclable. And this, I think, we need to work hand in hand with the regulators.
Thank you. Elena, how are your customers, the big pharma company, medium-sized, large pharma companies, approaching these kind of challenges around decarbonisation and ESG? I mean, are you seeing a willingness from their side to absorb additional costs? Because, sustainability comes as a premium.
Yes. The first time when you go to a meeting with the pharma company, they ask immediately, which is your strategy for sustainability? So it's the core business now, the core business of big pharma. They ask you to prepare a report to give evidence of what you can make for reduce emission, to reduce the carbon footprint. So everything is very important for them. As I told before, Flamma did it, and we have to do more and more to reduce. But I think this is also very important for reputation, also for to be competitive, because the big pharma don't see only the price, but see also what you do for the environmental. So it's important. So I think it's something that, as I told before, is not only a cost. It's something that gives you a plus on this field. For the new product, for innovator, is a plus. The problem could be for the old drugs, because for this could be a problem, because the cost is much. And so sometimes you can see in Europe disappear a lot of product, the old molecules.
Do you think, and I'm not asking you to go into any specifics here, but do you think sometimes it means that manufacturing in the EU can't compete with other parts of the world?
It depends. Yes, could be, but I think I work a lot also in China, and so I know a lot the China market, also the Asia in general. There are some companies in Asia that are very low profile, but you can find also high level. So I think if we want to be the best in Europe, we have to invest a lot in different things, not only in sustainability, but also in different things like AI. Because, for example, now in China, the children from 6 years have to study AI in the school. Right. So I think Europe have to be more fast, otherwise could be a minus for us.
It's an increasingly competitive world.
Yeah.
Agneta, how would you recommend that companies can get involved with these kind of conversations about influencing regulatory bodies to develop more industry-informed regulations? What kind of role can people participate in?
So to start that, I would like to give some about my background. So I'm a pharmacist, and I've been working in formulation development in the industry, but I have also been working at the Swedish Medical Products Agency, so seeing sort of both sides of this. And I have also been involved in the European Pharmacopoeia as an expert for a number of years. And it's quite interesting to see these different perspectives. So we need to understand that it's a different job that you do at the agency than in the industry, but the end goal is the same. It's to have a safe and efficient product. And how can you influence the regulatory guidance and requirements? I think it's 3 ways. It's in your applications, in the modules that you write. It is to help with the guidelines, and it's also to involve in the pharmacopoeia work. So let's start with the guidelines. So when the guidelines are out for consultations, so the guidelines in Europe, they are written by the regulatory agencies and the working parties at EMA, and then they're sent out for consultation. And I think there it's really important that the industry do look at these consultations and give their input so that the agencies can understand what is happening out in the industry, because it's the industry that drives innovation and development, and the agencies are there to make sure that it's safe and efficient. And the agencies, the assessors working there, they have a very broad knowledge about many different kinds of product, dosage form, etc. But they don't know as much about a single product as the industry does, and you have to have that in mind. Both when you have thoughts about the guidances, but also when you write your applications, because the assessor gets a couple of weeks, months to read your Module 3, but you as an industry, as a developer, has spent many years, many people thinking about this. And then, so when I worked as an assessor, you have to make a decision there. Is this good quality enough for my fellow citizens in Europe, that this quality is okay? And then you have to, as an industry partner, be really good at describing what is this about? Do I have everything that's needed? And be really scientific in the documentation so that it's possible to do a good assessment. So I would like to have more, if possible, interactions between industry and the agencies, and that, how should I express this? You should write enough. You should not write too much, and you have to be, I lost my line there. Okay, so you have to, no, sorry. I'll come back to that. Talking about the European Pharmacopoeia, this is also setting standards. And a very large difference between guidances and pharmacopoeia is that the pharmacopoeia monographs, they are developed with both industry and the regulators and academia at the same table in the same expert groups. And I think you should all think about being pharmacopoeia experts. You learn a lot about how the pharmacopoeia works, and you can then help with setting good, relevant standards that are not too good, but good enough, because I think that's what we really need now, is to have just good enough standards so that we get the right quality and not a too high quality of the products.
Great, thank you. And then, as a final question, and this is to you, Elisabeth, I'd like to really end talking about the opportunities for Europe as you see it. As we're at a time of protectionism and reshoring. Now, you mentioned the Critical Medicine Alliance earlier. How do you see that working? How do you see that encouraging manufacturing within the EU?
So the Critical Medicines Act is aimed to reshore the production of APIs and finished dosage forms as defined in the essential list of the European Commission. This, I have to say, the first list which was issued was December 2023. It contained 230 different molecules. It has now expanded to 270. So there is a yearly review of the molecules included. And the aim with this act, which I would say was the first time, and I'm taking here what Agneta was saying, that it was the first time where the regulators at the European level from different commissionates were meeting with the industry, different industry parts, with the healthcare providers, hospital patient associations, to understand the needs. The way it is issued, it aims to really bring back this manufacturing in Europe with what we call most economically tender conditions in the tenders, not only price, so consider other aspects like sustainability, quality, and not only price, so that we are not in this bottom-down race. It also aims to decrease the bureaucracy, especially when aiming to getting European funds. There is the provision of a fund included there, which we aim to increase in amount, because it's now with 80 million euros, which we think for 270 molecules is very low figure. Unfortunately, we are competing with the budget for defense now, so you have to decide what you think is more important, health or defense. And I think what is relevant there is that there is this awareness, real awareness at the European Commission that we need to depend less on the production of those products from outside. I think it's a good start. I think it needs to evolve into something more concrete, because it's still a bit vague. And it needs to offer more attractive incentives for the industry to reshore that production. And I think the most relevant thing here is that the products which are reshored and which are, if you can imagine, most of them are generic chronic treatments. They get price incentives enough so that all those investments in better manufacturing, digitalized manufacturing with more sustainable processes, blah, 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 at a reasonable cost, get also a reasonable price. So I think that's what we need, because otherwise we will have all this ramp up of production capabilities. But at the end, the European manufacturers will end up selling the products outside the European Union again. So it won't help. But I think it's a good initiative, and it's a good starting point.
Fantastic. Elena, Agneta, and Elisabeth, thank you so much for your time today. And a round of applause, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For more external manufacturing insights, head to cdmolive.com and download our 50-page summary of the event. Make sure to book your ticket for CDMO Live 2026. taking place the 27th to 28th of May at the World Trade Center Rotterdam. We look forward to seeing you there.